Welcome to my review of the LEGO Star Wars 2005 ARC-170 Starfighter, set number 7259 with 396 pieces. Its original retail price was $40, and inside you're going to find 3 minifigures plus an astromech droid. The box art on this thing is beautiful, showing the ARC-170 in the middle of a dogfight in the Battle above Coruscant. You've also got the epic Episode 3 key art surrounding it, combining for one heck of a box. Now, the back of it is pretty clean looking. They've got everything segmented nicely, showing you some of the main features of the ARC-170, and this was surprisingly still a time that they bothered to do alternate builds. These alternate builds don't really speak to me one way or another, but they are quite interesting looking. I also totally miss when they used to show off other sets from the same wave that would go together with the set you just bought, but nowadays they don't really need to do that because a lot of times they release things just kind of on their own, like the most recent ARC-170. Kind of sad. Now, cutting into this box, you're going to find a bunch of bags and your instruction manual. The instruction manual is vertical, but it makes a lot of sense when you're building the set, even though it does kind of look odd. At the back of it, they advertised a ton of other Episode 3 sets, as well as the new at the time LEGO Star Wars the video game, so pretty nice instruction manual overall. Now, the bagged parts were not numbered in this set. That was not super typical of the time, so you just got them all mixed together. Moving on to our minifigures, we have 3 Clone Pilots, and only 2 of them came with blasters. I'll explain why that is in a little bit, but they are all of the exact same design, so you're not getting any of the name characters that you might have seen in the opening scene of Revenge of the Sith, which of course this set is based on, so why wouldn't that happen? Well, of course, a lot of the time they can get things wrong or just miss things because the set has to be designed before the movie comes out, but I think this was just a different time for LEGO Star Wars. Like, even if they had known, I don't think they would have taken the time to create unique individual pilots for a set like this back in 2005, and frankly, back in 2005, that was more or less acceptable. The fandom was different, the company was different, just everything about LEGO Star Wars was different, and so it's hard to judge something like this through today's lens. And frankly, doing a bunch of these Revenge of the Sith set reviews in 2025, that's not what I want to do. I don't want to look at all of these through today's standards. I want to enjoy them with the nostalgia blinded goggles on. And with my nostalgia goggles on, I love these Clone Pilots. I also recognize that by today's standards, they are not very good, but these will always have a special place in my heart. They were a very fun part of my childhood. I very much enjoyed playing with these when I was younger. And to LEGO's credit, for the time, I think they did a really good job getting as many details on the torso and helmet as accurate as possible. But yeah, ultimately, this clone trooper has not stood the test of time. Looking back on it, this particular astromech droid's inclusion here was pretty rough because R4P44 would end up being the proper astromech droid that would make appearances in the latter 2 ARC-170s that have released since this one. And this astromech droid had already appeared in a few prior LEGO Star Wars sets, so this is the first time really thinking about it, but I'm assuming that this was just a cheap reuse, whatever they had already designed and ready to go for a random astromech droid to throw in this set. That being said, for the time, this was an okay astromech droid, but it definitely is another one that has not stood the test of time. They have really improved on astromech droids as well. So looking back on all the figures from this set, I mean, they definitely have the classic feel. The nostalgia is strong with this one. However, yeah, they're not that good by today's standards, but that's obvious. Am I gonna have to say that in every Revenge of the Sith review I do this year? Let's talk about the really dope ARC-170, which I think has aged far better than the figures have. This ARC-170 is indeed still incredibly good looking, and I think I'll start with one of the highlights of this set, and that's that all of these parts that you see with nice little details on them, they're printed. The perfectly round green detail at the front, the engine intake, the Republic logos on top of the wings, the paneling on both the sides and the back of the ARC-170, and finally the control panels inside, it's all printed. Just absurdly high quality and something you wouldn't see 20 years later in 2025. Now, on top of those high quality printed parts, the overall size, shape, and proportions of this ARC-170 is something else they did super well for 2005. It's not usually something I'm super concerned with, but this one seems to be pretty close to 1-to-1 minifig scale. I'm sure it's a little off in one way or another, but it is more than good enough for a LEGO Star Wars set. I would say the biggest flaw this set has is at the nose, where there's a rather large gap. Like, the shape of the nose is really good, but if there was an issue with it, it's definitely the gap right smack in the front of it. Moving on back from the nose section, you've got your front windscreen piece, and this one is not on a hinge, which is something I was always a bit disappointed in with this set, but it's something you just take off like that. And you can see the inside doesn't even have a control panel, but of course you can place your pilot in. Now, the big issue with this design is it's not a tile stud thing on the bottom, so when you go to pull him up, you'll often pull off his helmet, and then Sometimes it can be a bit tough. Sometimes when I was younger, the legs would get stuck down there. This time they did not get stuck down there, but on modern sets, you might notice a lot of the time they'll do like a half stud, half tile design. That was not the case here. Now it's very well hidden here, which is good because it keeps the design looking clean, but there's this small gap behind the main pilot area, and this is actually where you can load up the bombing function. I dropped that in on accident, but you get these translucent blue cylinder pieces and you load them in like that. There were 2 of them. So now that they're in there, well, how do you drop the bombs? Well, on the underside of the back of the ARC-170, there is this piece here, and it actually looks like a ship propeller the more I look at it. It's actually a dual function, but we'll come back to its second function in a minute. As far as the bomb dropping is concerned, you literally just pull it out, and the bombs drop out, just like me in college. The yellow dome piece at the front is where the bombs are held, and this is what the function looks like from underneath. It's pretty dang cool looking. Coming back to our propeller looking piece, you can of course pull it. You can also twist it. You just can't bop it. So when you twist it, it actually spins a whole mechanism on the inside of the ARC-170 that opens up the wings. The biggest downside to this is just how long it takes. But if you want the wings to close, you just keep spinning it. But with them open here, you can see these big pieces on the inside, and that's what pushes the wings open. You also have some rubber bands being used here, which means that over time, this can wear down. The rubber bands can theoretically break. I never had that happen on me, but that's definitely something that can happen with those types of parts. I think the fact that the mechanism does both the wings and the bomb dropping function is just obviously super cool, and it almost feels like it was ahead of its time for 2005. Just a crazy function that they were able to include here. Well, while we're talking about the wings, let's talk about the middle section. So these top and bottom sections, because of those rubber bands again, just snap right back, which is what you want. But the middle section is fairly sturdy, although if you twist it during the course of play, it definitely can snap reasonably easily. So there's definitely a downside to this design for as old as it is. I do think they did a great job cutting up the color here. So going from the white to the red all at one point there looks very nice. You've even got the red tip on the upper and lower wings, which definitely looks good there. Again, just cut right in the middle. And then you've got the cannons, which have the blue tips on the end. This is something they did a lot in the early years of Lego Star Wars. They definitely cleaned it up with newer models, but I definitely think it looks nice and has a classic charm in this particular case. And they're fairly accurately sized with the longer blaster on the bottom and the shorter one on the top. This again is something that can fall off a little bit too easy during play, but for the time was a good enough design. Now, something I thought I didn't like about this wing design was the fact that they had a bit of sag to them. However, I recently saw a comment on my YouTube channel where someone said that the sag on an ARC-170's wings actually might be accurate. And looking back at the film, it's hard to tell for sure, but it definitely feels that way, or maybe I've got a bit of bias in my mind and I'm just seeing it where it's not. But either way, the sag on the wings is not so significant to where it's distracting, and it might, like I said, just be accurate to how the ship is in universe. Moving back to the cockpit area on the ARC-170, I want to key in on something that this 2005 ARC-170 did, but no ARC-170 since has done, and that is actually have the clear panel that you can see into the interior of the ARC-170 with. I went back, watched that opening scene of Revenge of the Sith, and sure enough, the panel on the side of the ARC-170 is clear, and you can see to the inside of it, and that is something that this set did, and no set since has done, and it's just incredible that that attention to detail was there in 2005 and has since been lost. But anyway, for this section, you can open up both of the windscreen pieces, and the side panels even fold down, so you push those out so you can fit your astromech droid in a lot easier. I know I showed it off a little bit earlier, but very specifically, you've got a print for the tri-droid on the control panel on the inside of this ARC-170, and that's just another really neat detail. Of course, they take on the tri-droids and the vulture droids during the opening scene of Revenge of the Sith, so having that represented there, just really dope for 2005. There's ample space for your figures in this one, though, with R4 in the middle. You got your clone pilots on either side, and you might remember I said that only 2 blasters were included, and I assume that's because there's only space for the blasters at the back of the ARC-170, although there's space for up to 4 blasters inside of here, so I'm not really sure why they only included 2 when there definitely could have been a 3rd for this extra ARC-170 pilot. Maybe they didn't want you to store them where you could see it through the clear piece there. I'm not really sure. And on the back of the box, you can only see barely, there's that little blue stud from the tip of the blaster there between the pilot's helmet and R4's leg, so they don't even really explain that you're really supposed to put them back here on the back of the box. It's just something I kind of discovered as a kid, but yeah, if you look really closely, it is there. With our full crew inside, the last feature I want to show you is this little cannon at the back. back, it can spin, it can move up and down, and you might notice I'm grabbing here and not here because it's not the best play feature. It can just snap off super easily, but if you get it at the right angle, it can also spin 360 degrees. This is technically an inaccurate feature though, as you are supposed to also have a bottom cannon, so it really should have one on the bottom. This is one of those things that did get better with the 2010 and 2025 ARC-170s, but yeah, it was good enough for 2005, certainly. By today's standards, this whole feature, especially because it just snaps off, really would not fly. Finally, my least favorite thing on this ARC-170 has to be the exhaust color. It is supposed to be translucent pink, but in this case, they use translucent orange. It looks way better when they use translucent pink, so I wish that had been used here. I don't remember if the color existed or not in 2005, but just like the back cannon, that's something that ended up getting better with the latter versions of the ARC-170, at least as of 2025. You never know what they'll make worse again in the future, so I gotta have that caveat. For a 20-year-old set from 2005, this set is absurdly good. Its biggest flaw is its figures, and those are only bad because the set's from 2005. They've got a nostalgic charm to them, but they certainly don't stand up to the detail and accuracy that we expect and do see on a lot of figures in 2025. Now, this set didn't have a single sticker, as you saw. It's absurd the level of quality that they would bring to a set like this, the accuracy that they strived for even 20 years ago. They did a great job in a lot of areas on this set. Of course, they didn't get everything right, but 20 years ago, being this close to perfect is pretty dang good. So I love this set. I think it's absolutely worth it as a nostalgia buy in 2025. You can buy it used, new in box, whatever. You just need this ARC-170 in your life, in my opinion. I'm still pretty sure I think I like the 2010 build more, but man, having revisited this set now, the nostalgia is strong, and I really love this. So I give it a 9 out of 10. Let me know what you guys think about it in the comments section below, and you can check out more 2005 Revenge of the Sith set reviews on the end screen now.